Hello everybody, how are you doing? In this Webeo, I've proposed and envisioned a central railway hub in the New York borough of Queens, connecting to many different subway lines, commuter rail lines, and high-speed railway lines. So why build Queens Central Station? The purpose of Queens Central Station is to provide a unified hub outside New York's core business district, connecting to numerous modes of transportation, reaching to all sections of both the city core and suburban region alike. Doing this will minimize any sidetracking and or backtracking that commuters and travelers will have to take going in and out of Manhattan and surrounding areas. So how do we do this? Before we get into the station itself, let's go through how the New York City commuter rail system is laid out. Right now there are three systems. There's a New Jersey Transit, there's a Long Island Railroad, and the Metro North Railroad. These come into what seem to be two stations here, but they're operationally three distinct termini. Metro North has its hub at Grand Central, and right now that's not a through station. But Long Island Railroad trains cannot pass through Penn Station and go under the Hudson River. Similarly, most New Jersey Transit trains cannot enter Penn Station and go under the East River. The few that do have to use the Amtrak platforms and then eventually go to Sunnyside Yard. So it's a very inefficient use of space. Even the tracks are disjoint except the 5 or 6 Amtrak tracks that go through. Penn Station has 21 tracks and a vast majority of them are not connected throughout. Finally, there is no regional railway hub located in Lower Manhattan. If you notice, Penn Station and Grand Central are both in Midtown Manhattan, leaving the entire lower region right here. I know this is not geographically accurate, but this is just to illustrate a point. The entire lower region of Manhattan, for example, Wall Street, the World Trade Center, that has no commuter railway service whatsoever. So I've actually made 2 videos before this. This is video 3 of a multi-part video series. This involves the construction of East Side Access, which is actually already being constructed. It will be completed as of now in December 2022, but that could be delayed even further given the state of how the New York construction business is going. We also have Penn Station North and New Hudson River Rail Tunnel. So right here, this portion right here is East Side Access, connecting the Long Island Railroad to Grand Central, a new terminal under Grand Central. It will be 8 tracks and it will allow people from Long Island to go directly to Eastern Manhattan without going to Penn Station and backtracking. This is a good start, and it also allows for easy connections for a through station. The East Side Access terminal of Grand Central is very well suited for a through station that can be connected to a new railway station just north of Penn Station, which I call Penn Station North. And from there will be 2 new tracks constructed across the Hudson River all the way to the Portal Bridge in New Jersey to Newark, New Jersey. Phase 2, which was the next video, was to construct a new regional railway line through Lower Manhattan. So if you remember my last video, I constructed a railway line connecting from the Secaucus area down through Jersey City and through a new railway hub near the World Trade Center consisting of 8 tracks. This would all be underground except for the portion in New Jersey, and that would connect up through station in Williamsburg and to Queens Central Station. But you may have realized by now, Queens Central was not much discussed. I was like, okay, it ends at Queens Central. Well, that's what this video is to be for. Queens Central will connect to both the Midtown trains and the downtown trains, in addition to many other transportation modes I'll be discussing later. And as I said, this last part is construction of major hubs outside Manhattan with connection to subway, bus, and possibly even light rail in the near future. So right now, this station right here, the eastern part of that dividing section, if you know what I mean, is Queens Central Station. It is a capstone project of Phase 2. It will connect trains coming from Penn Station, the World Trade Center in Brooklyn, Westchester in Connecticut, and Long Island. So all these 4 regions here, and these both go to New Jersey as well. So you could see the diverse reach of localities that this has connecting. And this is a more comprehensive diagram of what type of services will be coming to Queens Central. So as I said, we have the train to Penn Station in New Jersey, train to Brooklyn and World Trade Center. This will be through my new underground alignment I proposed last video. We also have the train to the Bronx and Connecticut. Next video, I'm going to actually be planning out connections from the Northeast Corridor to go west to the Hudson and Harlem line. So people from Tarrytown and White Plains can also come into this station. We also have AirTrain LaGuardia. I'm going to lay that out next video as well. And then we have the existing line to Jamaica and Eastern Long Island, for example, Nassau and Suffolk counties. So what are the goals of this hub? It provides connections to several different railway lines. There will be train service to Long Island, Brooklyn, Midtown and Lower Manhattan both. That's very important. Both parts of Manhattan will be directly connected. New Jersey, Connecticut, major airports and beyond. They will all come together into this unified hub in Queens. There will also be subway access to all of Midtown Manhattan. So the station will have 5 subway lines, e.g. MR7. Out of those, 4 of them will connect to most nodes of Midtown Manhattan. Later in this video, I'm actually going to show you a diagram of how much of Midtown Manhattan is covered by these 4 subway lines alone. This is done through rerouting the subway lines into Queens Central Station from nearby Queens Plaza. So this will increase the incentive of people coming into Queens Central, especially from Long Island or the New Haven line of the Metro North Railroad. They can just connect at Queens Central and go more directly to their final destination. This will significantly reduce backtracking because you're already out of the city, so branching off to upper Midtown versus lower Midtown, it won't make that much of the distance change versus having to go into Midtown first and then sidetracking to go north or south or east, for example. And finally, this leads into the possibilities of relieving congestion at Penn Station. The transfer of passengers will take place outside Manhattan where more space is readily available. So this will reduce the need of significant expansions to Penn Station. Now yes, I know my first video of this series I proposed an 8-track northern station, but that's just a more intermediate stage and it's more to make Penn Station a through station and connect it with Grand Central. But this will really relieve the congestion at Penn Station. Many people, I expect, will be transferring to the subway to go to Midtown. For example, on the 7 train from Queens Central, I'm going to be discussing this later, it's only 3 stops away from Grand Central, 5 stops away from Times Square, very close to Rockefeller and other prominent localities as well. So what are the benefits of building the station? Well, obviously, there are less time traveling, which means more productive workforce. 20 to 30 minutes of commute time can be saved for workers in Midtown Manhattan because they don't have to go all the way into Penn Station or Grand Central, which may not be close to their final destination, and then rely on the subway there. Instead, they take a more direct route through Queens Central and then branch off to a subway line going into Midtown Manhattan. Or they could take the train into Lower Manhattan and find a subway from there too. This means less stress and increased quality of life for all New Yorkers. It will also increase the desirability of real estate in Western Queens. So this station will be including malls and other pedestrian-friendly amenities, and it can spur further shopping, office, and transit-oriented residential development. Now what's important is that this western Long Island City to Queens Plaza area of Queens is already relatively higher income, so there will not be that many issues with gentrification. This is not going to be in a middle of a residential neighborhood that prides itself for lower prices, and I want it to keep that way. I'm not the biggest fan of gentrification and I try to avoid it at all costs, if possible. Finally, and obviously, it will increase tourism and international business because New York City will finally get a better reputation about its transportation system, increasing the desirability for tourists and businesses alike to come on in. When they see, for example, if they're coming from one of the airports, LaGuardia or JFK, they see directions, okay, go through Queens Central, and they have all these big pictures. I'm going to show you how architecturally Queens Central could be. When they see the pictures, they'll be like, oh wow, New York City is a very nice place to visit. So there are many parts of this project. I'm going to be focusing on 2 of these 3. So the main 2 parts are the realignment of two subway lines, which include 5 services, the EGMR7, all through Queens Central, parallel to the main line. The point of this is because currently they converge at a place near Queens and Queensboro Plaza, which is 0.5 miles away. And when you have a station that far away, the point of Queens Central is drastically diminished because not many people will be willing to transfer at Queens Central, and overcrowding will persist at Penn Station, for example. Not to mention commute times will still be relatively longer. So this will realign all those subway lines into Queens Central. There will also be a project on realignment of the main line into a collection of 14 tracks. Now this main line station will have 14 tracks. And I'm not going to go into it too much because I don't have exact details on the interlockings and other geometries of this. But 14 tracks, I've laid out it on Google Earth. I'm going to show the station actually on Google Earth later. And that will have 14 tracks and it's well enough spaced. Finally, it will involve the construction of a grand, airy, modern station complete with retail, restaurants and gathering places. So it will be a place that people want to go to, not Penn Station. So right now, this is the state of what the subways and the main line are like. For simplicity reasons, I've not depicted any branches going to Lower Manhattan that I've proposed or the Amtrak line going to Connecticut. This is just a main line right here. So right now you have the E, M and R trains converging at Queens Plaza right here, and the 7th train going to Queensboro Plaza. There are other subway lines in this area as well, but I've only depicted these 5 subway lines to show that these are the 5 that are going to be going through Queens Central. So they converge here, and this is a good 0.5 miles away from the main line. So people are not going to be willing to walk that far just to catch a subway. They might as well just be going to Penn Station or Grand Central, and this would keep overcrowding there rather than spreading it out to this station right here. This station, in other words, would be underutilized if the subways remain like this. Additionally, we have the G train, which for whatever reason stops at Court Square. I believe it has to do with the interlocking because Queens Plaza doesn't have such a system there. But still, there's actually a track that exists from Court Square to Queens Plaza, and it was used by the G train at one point. The G train actually used to run on this line right here until 2010 when it was scrapped due to low ridership. So all these lines are mishmashed here. They don't converge at one place. Queens Plaza is probably the best converging point, but it's still pretty far from the main line. So these are the affected stations. So the red stations are ones that are going to be destroyed, and the orange ones are the ones that will lose service on these lines here, but service will move to other lines. So Court Square and 33rd Street, both on the 7 line, will have to be demolished, in addition to all this section of elevated track right here. Queensboro Plaza will remove 7 service, but it will remain open for the N and W trains going to and from Astoria. Finally, 36th Street will lose service from the M&R trains currently, but the F trains coming from the 63rd Street tunnel, those won't go to Queens Central by the way, but they will go on to the Northern Boulevard line and they will stop at 36th Street. So without further ado, let's see the full realignment. And here it is. So I've relocated all these railway lines into Queens Central right here. So Queens Plaza will, the G train will finally connect to Queens Plaza. And the EGMR trains will go from Queens Plaza onto a new alignment going directly parallel to the main line tracks at Queens Central. After that, the train tracks will deviate to their former locations. E train will go under Northern Boulevard, while the M&R trains will go up Steinway Street and stop at Steinway Street. Also, the 7th train will see a huge change in how it's run. So Hunters Point Avenue station will remain, but the entire section from Hunters Point, actually from the portal just east of Hunters Point Avenue to just west of 40th Street, that entire elevated viaduct will be demolished in favor of this new alignment parallel to the Long Island Railroad mainline tracks through Queens Central and onto a bridge over the main line and down to 40th Street and Queens Boulevard right here. This shows how much of Manhattan is served by the subway from Queens Central. For simplicity, Queens stations in Long Island City are not shown. I know there are a couple of stations here like Hunters Point Avenue, Court Square and whatnot here. I've not depicted them. I just want to show you how much of Manhattan is served. All of this right here. Grand Central, Bryant Park, Times Square. This is basically most stations, or at least most neighborhoods in Midtown Manhattan. The only place that is really underserved is a lower eastern part of Manhattan. For example, the 456 line at 33rd Street, that neighborhood is not well served, but that's just the nature of which subway lines go to the Queens Central area. But most subway lines do, and nearly all of the prominent destinations will be served directly by a line from Queens Central. So you can be coming from Metro North Railroad or Long Island Railroad, stop at Queens Central, take a quick, easy transfer to a subway in the same station and go to any station on this map and beyond. Some of these lines even go south to further destinations. Now, there's another issue with this proposal: East Side access. The problem is East Side access is already under construction and it deviates from the main line 1 kilometer or around 0.625 miles to the west. It deviates 0.625 miles to the east of where Queens Central is going to be. This deviation occurs at around the 39th Street Bridge. To reline the subway tracks to a Queens Central station that far east is relatively unfeasible. If you remember where all the subway lines converge near the Queensboro Plaza area, Queens Central is not that far from it. So while rerouting them will be pretty expensive, it won't be as expensive as rerouting these subway lines all the way to the 39th Street area. Not to mention, it is also relatively far from the current Queens Plaza business district. So where many of the business and commercial activity already is, the station will not be there. It may spur some new activity, but that may involve gentrification and some more neighborhood clout. Not clout, but anti-clout, if you know what I mean. So what I've done is I'm going to utilize advantages. I'm going to say this: we want to give our commuters options. So the East Side access trains will not stop at Queens Central, giving travelers the option of having a direct non-stop train through Manhattan. So for example, if you want a high-speed railway line connecting directly from Boston to New York, for example, they won't stop at Queens Central. That may save 5 minutes for them, but it may seem prestigious to the travelers on this train. They can just take East Side access. So it's not a true unified central hub, but it's unified in the fact that the station will connect nearly all the lines serving the New York metropolitan area. And obviously all trains passing through Queens Central will make a stop there. So without further ado, let's actually go through Google Earth and show you the geographies of this proposal. So these are the various new rail alignment changes that will happen in the Queens Central region to unify the subway at Queens Central, providing a seamless transfer experience. I've placed a key below, but some of the colored text may be a little confusing, so I'm going to explain that to you. Green means no change to the physical station. Orange means the current services, the services listed will not serve the station anymore, but other services will. So Queensboro Plaza, the 7th train will go, but the N&W trains will remain. For 36th Street, the M&R trains will go, but the F train coming from the 63rd Street tunnel will have a stop there. So what will happen is the 7th train will be rerouted through alignment from the portal right here just east of Hunters Point Avenue, going parallel to the existing main line, going through Queens Central and then down on 37th Street and then right onto Queens Boulevard right here. And this will be a simple flying junction and then stop at 40th Street and go on to Flushing. I'm going to go into details of these exact alignments later on. What will happen because of that? Well, the viaducts will be demolished, and I do think viaduct demolition is important. Maybe a Highline Park could also be another option, but especially in this portion right here, I think demolition of the viaduct is more feasible. A Highline could very well work here. I think that would be a very good boon for Queens. But through here, especially through the Queens Boulevard area going just in front of Queens Central, it's not worth it to have a viaduct obstructing the Grand Station view. And it is going to be a Grand Station. I'm going to show you architecturally what it could be like. So this viaduct right here will be demolished. Then you have the EG MNR trains. So as I said before, there is actually a track connecting to Queens Central from the G train at Court Square right here. There are two Court Square stations that are disjoint and they connect to Queens Plaza, but then the current line goes through 36th Street and the local trains deviate to Steinway Street and the express trains continue under Northern Boulevard like this. So this will remove this section right here. Now I understand the F train will still serve this area right here, but the MNR trains will not serve this anymore. And they will be rerouted through this alignment right here, going through Queens Central and back on up. So let's go through the details, shall we? So this is the 7 train portal right here, and just as it comes out, there are going to be 2 tracks deviating to the side, going to what will be the new 7 alignment through Queens Central. It will directly parallel the existing main line. And as you can see, these blue lines right here, that is where the proposal to downtown Manhattan I made last Webeo, that's where these will go. The portals will be around here. There will be a small viaduct over these tracks here because these tracks connect to Sunnyside Yard and I don't want a subway line to block those tracks. So they will continue under Queens Boulevard right here, and this is the site of Queens Central. Now I understand Queens Central may infringe a bit into the property of Sunnyside Yard, but it won't be that much and I think most trains will still fit comfortably well. I'm not proposing a full overdeck of Sunnyside Yard, maybe that's in the distant future, but this portion right here I could definitely see decking over and adding a park and or other real estate in this area. So this will be on the ground here going through Queens Central, and I'm actually going to show you the exact track layout later on. It would be too hectic to try to rearrange all the tracks here. And then the 7 train will go above the tracks. Remember, magenta is a viaduct. It will go above the tracks, turn right, go on a new viaduct over 37th Street. Now this may be a bit of a problematic issue, but this is actually more of a warehouse district rather than a residential district. So residences tend to hate these elevated lines much more than warehouses and businesses do. So placing an elevated line here shouldn't be that much of an issue. And they will rejoin just west of 40th Street. Now what's being demolished? All of this right here. This could become a high line to 33rd Street, but this portion right here over the tracks on Queens Boulevard, I think it's better that be demolished. And that will continue right here. I think the tracks may remain here too because it's pretty complicated how it's laid out here. So the eastbound tracks are on the upper level, westbound tracks on the lower level. Will be too complicated to demolish one track on each level. So the tracks will remain everywhere. Probably allow 2 tracks for the N and W trains. This portion right here, it could be demolished, or building a high line type system is another possibility. This will allow more development to occur in this area, giving them another green space. So what about the EG MNR trains? So they converge in Queens Plaza, which is located under Northern Boulevard right here at the intersection of Queens Plaza and Queens Boulevard. So this is a 4-track station right now, but it will be turned into 6 tracks. And the reason it will be turned into 6 tracks is because this will allow 4 tracks to be in operation through the entire time Queens Central is being constructed, which will be quite a long time. 2 tracks cannot handle 3 to 4 subway services, so I've actually showed diagrams of how this will happen. So this is the current layout of Queens Plaza. It is 4 tracks with 2 island platforms. The There is also the R train connecting to and from the 60th Street Tunnel just to the west, in addition to the two outer tracks here which are right now not in service, but they actually connect to the G train at Court Square. These are not in regular service right now. So to the west, the E and M trains are on the inner tracks and R trains are on the outer tracks. But the M trains become the outer tracks to the east of the station. So part 1 of this change to deviate the line to the south is pretty self-explanatory, just adding 2 tracks to the outside. So the R trains will be rerouted to the outermost tracks with 2 new side platforms. The M train will be on the outer middle tracks and the E train will be on the inner middle tracks. The purpose of adding 6 tracks is so you can deviate the line to the south while maintaining 4-track service throughout the construction time. Now, you may be wondering if Northern Boulevard will be wide enough to handle a 6-track station. I think it should be, but the main issue may be how it will be open. So the traffic may have to squeeze into the portion above the existing station while the new outer tracks are built. If it's possible to build this station without doing cut and cover, that would be excellent. I do know the station is 2 levels below the surface, but that's still pretty shallow, so I'm still skeptical if that can be done. So there could be some pretty significant traffic problems and traffic changes on the road in this area. But this 6 tracks will become this. So what happens here? So basically what I've done is the outer tracks, they just have a simple deviating track going to the south. Those become the outermost tracks. The outer middle tracks will not connect to the new line anymore. They will descend underneath the outermost tracks and go underneath. Well, in this case, it will go underneath the express tracks and continue on. And this has connections to all 6 tracks right here. So all 6 tracks could be in service during this change. So again, 4 tracks in operation. Either way, you could see 4 tracks going to the east or 4 tracks going to the south through Queens Central. That was the purpose of adding the 6 tracks. And finally, phase 3 is simple changes in the services. So the G trains will become the outer tracks here going to and from Court Square. The R trains will remain as is, and they will all go to the south through to Queens Central, with the E train being in the central tracks and the other being in the outer tracks. So this light blue line right here represents where the tunnel will have to be realigned. Now hopefully it can clear the Q-tip connection of east side access. If not, the worst case is that the trains will have to bypass Queens Plaza altogether, but I think there's enough room for this to happen. It'll go underneath here, but then onto a viaduct over Sunnyside Yard, and this will allow trains at Sunnyside Yard to continue going to the northeast corridor, and this will connect to the same alignment at Queens Central. And now I understand the subway portion of Queens Central will be a little further east than the entire length of the commuter rail platforms, but this is so that it can clear access to Queens Plaza. After Queens Central, this will be a 4-track alignment right here. The G train will actually end and go through a looping track to go back around, but the E, M and R trains will continue here and descend back into a tunnel. This flying junction right here is where the E trains will go to the east under Northern Boulevard and join the F trains, while the M and R trains will go to the north and continue joining the existing track. That will also be a simple flying junction, no advanced track changes, and go to Steinway Street. So that is a depiction of all the track changes in the greater Queens Central area. Before I get back into the PowerPoint, I'm going to show you what regional railway lines will be serving Queens Central Station. Right now you're seeing the proposals I've made of New York's commuter rail system to increase its efficiency and connection to the entire New York metropolitan area. Phase 1, which was 2 videos ago, involved the expansion of the northeast corridor to Penn Station to 4 tracks and a new connected Penn Station to Grand Central east side access. and this would bypass Queens Central, giving commuters and tourists alike the option to bypass a stop here and go directly to Midtown Manhattan. All other trains, however, will stop at Queens Central. These include trains going to the existing Penn Station and on to New Jersey, as well as trains going on to Lower Manhattan. Now this is actually another proposed line. This is a new tunnel going into Williamsburg and the World Trade Center area. It will finally give New York commuters their first one-seat access to Lower Manhattan. This was a proposal I made last Webeo. And this would continue into Jersey City at Newport and further connections to Bergen and Passaic counties, as well as a Northeast corridor. On the other side, this will have connections right here to the Northeast corridor, and I'm actually going to propose a connection a couple videos from now that connect it to the Harlem and Hudson line of the Metro North Railroad, and finally connections down to the rest of Long Island. So all these trains unify at Queens Central and then deviate to their destinations. It's very, very efficient to have a station operation right here, where it's far enough from the suburbs that it's pretty efficient to branch all the suburban lines from it, but it's also far enough from downtown that you can branch all the subway lines from it. But it's not that far from downtown. It's only 3 stations via subway from Grand Central, and a couple more stations away from Rockefeller, Times Square, Central Park, whatnot. In fact, Central Park's only going to be 2 stations away, 2 to 3 stations away depending on station, on the AirTrain. So Manhattan is pretty close from Queens Central, but it's still efficient. It's not right in Manhattan because that infuses overcrowding and a lot of backtracking. So how will this station be designed? These are my recommendations. I want natural light all the way down to the platforms, not just to the concourse, but all the way down to the platforms. When commuters and tourists alike arrive at Queens Central, we want them to be awed at the openness and design of the station. Platforms will be connected via bridges above the tracks. So many stations, many nicer stations even, have a very nice concourse, but their tracks are completely shut from any light. It's just basically you're in a basement when you arrive. Even Grand Central, I would say that. I would also say the same of very expensive stations being built around the world. For example, West Kowloon Station near Hong Kong. Now I understand that station, there's a space constraint, so that's understandable. But Queens Central, when you have a lot of available room, it's not acceptable. We need open light coming all the way down to the platforms. This will also have full integration, as I said. So it'll actually have connections to an AirTrain, which I'm going to actually lay out next video, subway, commuter rail, and high-speed rail. They will all share the same grand open concourse, encouraging transfer between the transit lines and systems. So you won't have to walk out to the station, walk 0.5 miles, for example, to Queens or Queensboro Plaza to get your subway from there. They will all be unified here instead. This station will also include retail and restaurants. So most of the world's best airports contain high-end retail and restaurants. However, such services in a train station, beyond driving in foot traffic and city revenue, like an airport would, can spur further development in Sunnyside Yard area and Long Island City. So once you have all these people coming to Queens Central just to shop and whatnot, beyond just using the trains, it will spur further demand in this western region of Queens. And perhaps most importantly, we need to work with renowned architects. So engineers, city planners, and transportation enthusiasts like me are not enough to make a visually appealing station. And this visually appealing station should not bring a summer of hell to visiting travelers like Penn Station does currently. So what should the station be like? I'm going to show you examples and just tell you what I like and don't like about it. This right here is actually Governor Andrew Cuomo's proposal of Penn Station right here, but you should see direct sunlight coming down into the concourse. However, it doesn't go down to the tracks. Why not? Well, perhaps there's not enough room. That's kind of understandable, but Queens Central, there will be enough room. So this is a good start, but not quite there yet. This is another picture of the new proposed Penn Station. Now we'll see whether or not this is actually built, but this shows how the restaurants can have a big impact on the social atmosphere of the station. This right here is actually a California high-speed rail station. So here, the bridges are actually in the form of tunnels underneath the tracks. The problem is this open of an architecture can only support 6 to 7 parallel tracks. Queens Central will have 24 parallel tracks, so will not be that efficient. Perhaps something like this, but then again, this is not very open to light. This is Guangzhou South Railway Station in China. So this has 30 tracks, all high-speed rail, but there's not that much sunlight coming through here, and although this station looks futuristic, it's pretty bland. So use what we have seen from those, and that's my best inspiration to design a very good Queens Central station. Okay, so these are the exact services going to Queens Central. So I had these are the directions. So we have Long Island Railroad, New Jersey Transit, Amtrak, and Metro North all going to Penn Station and New Jersey. So all four, including Metro North, have the option to go to Penn Station in this Queens Central proposal. Just to the north, we have the subway lines deviating to all these places right here. And I showed you that a couple of slides ago how much of Manhattan is served by these 4 subway lines alone. We also have the Amtrak and Metro North going up to the Bronx, Westchester, and Connecticut, and further on in New England. So all those people can connect at Queens Central and go to any of these destinations shown here. There's also AirTrain LaGuardia to LaGuardia Airport. There is a 7 train and the Long Island Railroad Port Washington branch that goes to Flushing and Port Washington. I've combined these two here because they go to the same general area. We also have the Long Island Railroad and Amtrak mainline. I'm actually going to make Amtrak go on to at least Jamaica, if not beyond. It depends on if any expansion to the main line is done, whether it's my proposal or the 3-track line. Also, the EMNR trains will go roughly parallel to this. This will go to Jamaica and the JFK Air train and Nassau and Suffolk counties. Finally, to the south, you have the G train going to Brooklyn, as well as all these 4 services here going to the lower Manhattan line. This connects to World Trade Center and Jersey City rather. So all of this unifies at Queens Central. At Queens Central, you can go to nearly any place in the New York metropolitan area on a single train. So this is the track overview. So this is how the tracks will be laid out. This is going to be 24 total tracks. So to the north, we have the Air train, which is 2 tracks. We have the EGMNR subway, which will consist of 6 tracks. And I'm actually going to show you the exact track layout later on. I'm just showing you this right now because when you try to put 24 tracks onto a PowerPoint slide, it becomes a cluster of it's not easy to see, trust me. So then you have the 7 subway with 2 tracks. Finally, you have all the commuter rail trains, and this is the depiction right here. So Long Island to Penn Station, 3 tracks. Long Island to World Trade Center via the new connection, 1 track. Bronx to World Trade Center, 1 track. Bronx to Penn, 2 tracks. So trains coming from the Bronx will be 3 tracks, from Long Island 4 tracks. Trains going to Penn Station will be 5 tracks with on the outside, and the inner 2 tracks will go to the World Trade Center. The reverse is true on the other 7 tracks. So Penn to Bronx, 2 tracks. World Trade Center to Bronx, 1 track. World Trade Center to Long Island, 1 track. And Penn to Long Island, 3 tracks. And this is the exact track layout. I know it's not very understandable, that's why I provided the previous slide for you. But the point I want to make is these are how the tracks go. So you have 3 tracks coming from Long Island Railroad westbound, 3 going eastbound, and 4 coming to and from the Bronx and Connecticut. You also have these 4 tracks right here which will connect to Sunnyside Yard. And these 4 tracks have connections to all the lines here, including the World Trade Center line and both the Central Penn and the Outer Penn Station lines. The World Trade Center lines will join in the middle of the Amtrak and LIRR lines, allowing connections from these trains to go to pretty much anywhere east and north of Queens Central, including the Bronx, Eastern Long Island, for example, Nassau, Suffolk counties, as well as New England and beyond. We also have the subways right here. Subway will be 10 tracks. Now there will be, actually no, subway is 8 tracks. 7 will be the 2 southernmost tracks, and the EGM and R trains will be the 6 northern tracks. The G will be the 2 outer tracks of this going in a loop around. E train will be the centermost tracks, and this track right here will be for the MNR trains. Finally, the 2 northernmost tracks will be for AirTrain LaGuardia. Now remember that these are all unified into a single concourse. Now you may be wondering, why only 1 track between platforms here? I'm actually going to implement a Spanish solution. So what this means is a platform will be dedicated only for boarding or deboarding. There will be electronic fare gates for tickets. So the tickets can be still punched at regional stations, but to exit and enter Queens Central, they will have to pass through a ticket gate. And this will be much more efficient using a Spanish solution. Not to mention, exiting and entering a train, you only have to do it on one side. For example, exit to the left of the train and people will enter from the right. You don't have to step back while customers are exiting to cross a gap over the platform. I don't know the announcement exactly, but something like that. You don't have to wait for customers to exit. It will reduce stoppage time at Queens Central, because I do expect quite a bit of people will be interchanging trains at Queens Central. So that concludes phase 1 and 2, which involves the construction of East Side Access, Penn Station North, and a new Hudson River Rail Tunnel, as well as a construction of a new railway line to the Lower Manhattan area, along with major hubs outside Manhattan, which involves several different connections to subway, bus, and light rail. So where are we going? This is the master plan. So basically all that's going to really happen is connect Metro North to all of this. Metro North is still relatively isolated from most of the work I've been doing. That won't be for any longer. So this will connect all lines to all Manhattan hubs, increasing the interconnectivity with Manhattan and surrounding counties. There will be direct train service from New England and Westchester County to Eastern Long Island. I've not depicted it right here, but there will be a train service, 1-seat train ride going to Jamaica and further on. And most importantly, much of this work takes place on existing track alignments. So you won't have to build great new stretches of tracks just to accommodate this. The only very major track segment being constructed are the new Hudson River Rail Tunnel and the new Lower Manhattan connection. So there'll be actually 2 new Hudson River Rail Tunnels under this. And this is a comparison with what is there before and what is there after. Disjoint commuter rail systems going into terminus, not serving all of Manhattan, to interconnectivity with many different subway lines, many different regions, allowing passengers to seamlessly connect at major hubs both in and out of Manhattan to go more directly to their final destination. That's all I have for this Webeo. Thank you so much for watching. I know this was quite long and it took me quite a long time to make, especially the diagrams. Next Webeo, I'm going to be discussing this interconnectivity and the finale of what is the unification of New York City's commuter rail system. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.